What is up, maniacs? Welcome to episode 45 of WMMA Mania, and a happy 2023 to you, the first episode of the brand new year. I'm your host, as always, Drake Riggs, here to bring you the latest and greatest in the world of mixed martial arts when it comes to the ladies specifically. And today is our award show for 2022, as that's what we do for the very first episode of the new year. So for this year, 2023, obviously, got to reflect on what just went down the past year before we move along to what's to come. And there's no events to preview just yet. We'll get back into action next week. But before that, we'll also preview the one fight that we did have last week, closing out the year at RIZIN 40. So we will be recapping that one. Get into the news as well. Only one bit of news this time around to kick off the new year. So we'll mostly be focused on the awards today, as you would imagine. So it'll always be always a fun time talking about the best from the year and, giving credit, appreciation, respect, props to everybody who had their moments from 2022. That is always a good thing, no matter what year it is. So that's what we'll be doing today. And you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Whether it's your first time here, Happy New Year to you, or you're a reoccurring viewer, don't forget to visit MMAnia.com for all your MMA needs. And you can even like, share, and subscribe to the video on the channel so you don't miss a gosh darn thing. There's also a notification bell, and that helps with not missing out. So go ahead and get right on that. And as you guys can see, I'm not very dressed up, too fancy today. This is what I normally kind of wear for our shows. I did want to be a little bit fancier, as I definitely like to be, but I just couldn't fit in. It's been a hectic start, very crazy start to the new year, but in a good way. Because as you can see, we got some new equipment and new toys to play with. I got a new mic here, which I hope is sounding all good so far. I can hear myself again. The aux cord, or the output cord, was broken for the whole. Just the output was broken on my old microphone, so now I can hear myself again, which is nice. And I get the music. I don't usually get to hear the music. And a new webcam, another. So now I have 3 different angles to work with here. So we're a little bit fancy on the upgrades to kick off the year. So as you can see, that's what we got. That's what we got. So I hope everybody is doing well. As James is here, he got here early, and he said, very early. What are you looking forward to more, Rain Silly Rhymes or Ghost Award bit from WMA today in 2021? I always look forward to the rhymes. I always do. But Ghosts Awards, I don't know. Is he doing awards, or do you mean specific awards we'll be doing? Because, of course, we'll get more into that when we get there. But Jimmy saying, I want to ask you about the Fruiting Body podcast. Why did you say in a previous show that you didn't like the host? He's better than 90% of media and sells mushrooms. Well, good for him. Did I say I don't like him? I don't know if I said that. I don't know who he is. That's what I said. I don't really know who the guy is. And he's obviously not an MMA guy, or if he is, he's new to it. I don't even know what his name is, but he just seems like, from what I've seen from him in the 2 bits of interviews and whatnot in his podcast, no, I don't dislike him. I don't have anything wrong with him. He just seems like a more casual fan. But that's it. I don't dislike him at all. I still don't know his name, but shout out to that guy. Like, he's done a good job from what I've seen, and his quality and everything I gave big respect to. I never said I didn't like him at all. I didn't say that whatsoever. Rain is here. Here we go. Get ready for the rhymes, you guys. The Zhang Wei Li of taking a sip of tea, the Derek Minner of not being a winner. Ouch, poor Derek, getting roasted here early in the year. The Max Holloway of boating on a bay when confronted with pictures of Dustin Poirier. Oh, wow. That one really came around. This guy, you got to start writing some poetry, Rain. You got to sell these. They're too good. Happy New Year's to you as well, James. Cheers to harassing those with bad takes. That is not what we do unless it's in a fun, friendly manner. This is a positive environment. I'm sticking to that, especially in the new year. Yes, we'll get to those. Go says, I have 3 thought-provoking questions that I want to drop throughout the show, hopefully with good timing. Well, we'll leave that up to you then. Best of luck timing them. Barton is here, says, will I be covering Dana hitting his wife? Because I've seen some bizarre takes on that and people defending him for his horrible actions. Yes, real quick, I guess we'll cover that right now since you asked about it, Barton. But that is not on the show lineup today, as she's not a fighter, so I don't think that really qualifies, obviously, as part of the news for this show, technically. But since you brought it up, yeah, we can touch on it. And I mean, the best thing to say, as you said, as you mentioned, the bizarre takes here and people defending him. That's the most ridiculous kind of funny thing to me when he himself has come out. He literally said that there's no excuses and like he's taking responsibility for it and isn't defending himself at all. So then why are other people like they're just like exposing themselves as pieces of shit, I guess. Very weird. It's very, very, that's the most bizarre part about it, because obviously, what is it? 2 rights don't make a wrong, whatever the phrase is, the saying. I'm definitely not for that kind of thing. But yeah, I think the only thing you need to look at is, all right, Dana understands that he did a bad thing. That leave it there. There's no defense needed. He even said that himself. Like, very weird. It's been some very weird responses for sure to that. But I'm not really surprised, I guess. Not really. Alvin is here. He's back. He's been quiet the last couple shows if he has been here, but great to see you, buddy. Says hello. Let's start the new year on a positive note. Always. There's too much negativity in the space, and that's why I had to step away for a bit. All right, so we answered it right there. Let's encourage and learn from each other always. There you go. We need more Alvin in our lives, guys. Can't push him away. This is for everybody who watches the show, whether you do comment or not. Of course, always stay positive and great vibes for a fresh start, right? We re-roll every calendar, and it's a good time to just stay positive and have your goals in mind and all those good things. Rain says he also sent an email. Yes, you guys both did. So I appreciate that greatly for the creativity and input. And yeah, I mean, took some into account, and we'll get to that later when we get to that portion, of course. But we're starting things off with RIZIN 40. The last show of the year was quite a good one, quite a doozy. A lot of interesting talking points from it. Started off on fire with about 6-7 knockouts or so. Then we got our first submission from Naoki Inoue. Then we got the tournament finals. Then obviously the Bellator RIZIN main card showcase, if you will. But as I mentioned, with those tournament finals, that gave us Siwoo Park and Sekizawa 2, which resulted in a split decision victory for the champ, still undefeated, 9-0 now. Sayaka Izawa getting the job done once again over Siwoo Park, obviously, since she's undefeated, as I said. Very, very intriguing fight. Very, very much so. Competitive like the last one, maybe not as competitive. I know people made some arguments for the first fight too in the other direction. Obviously there's arguments in this one, as expected. Like I told you guys last week, as much as I love Sekizawa and as much as she is one of the best fighters on the planet, Siwoo Park was so insanely wrongly counted out, at least by Tapology, right? Because that's what we look at for our previews. Like the votes on that were, what was it, 85%? If I remember correctly, it was pretty high in favor of Seka, which she should have been the favorite. Of course, had the win over her already, has done, very well since they first fought. They both have, but Siwoo Park has improved tremendously. And I just got a very strange noise on the mic. I don't know what that was or why that happened, but yeah, Sekizawa ends up getting the job done. To throw out the rating for this fight, like I said, it was very interesting. I don't think it ended up qualifying for fight of the year, as we will talk about obviously later, but it was very good. I was very intrigued by it as it played out. I was very excited for it going in. It was a 10 out of 10 for me, just as the beforehand and afterwards. I would give it a pretty solid 8. And it wasn't like the most exciting or, entertaining, wild, crazy fight, right? It was more of each trying to impose their game plans properly. More so Seka trying to do her thing, which is what we expected. Get the fight to the ground as best she can, or get a hold of Park, which was like that first round. She ends up getting a hold of her in the corner, backpacking her, essentially, as we like to call it, right? Getting on the back and working from there for pretty much the entirety of the round. So it was like, as we like to call, a little bit of a chess match more than, your wild brawl. Even though the exchanges on the feet I thought were pretty good, and Saka looked a little bit sharper, a little bit tighter with her combinations. She's improving in the striking. Got some good shots off, timed the right hand pretty well in the second round, particularly if I'm remembering, and struck her way in to her, clinching or takedown attempts. Um, Better, she's continually getting better and better at that, because it's easy to forget that she still is very young in the sport and life, 25, but the best atom weight in the world. So it was just more of seeing the whole fight was pretty much seeing if she could do what she wanted to do. And for the most part, she did. Obviously, at the end of the fight, a very strange kind of instance there with the closing minute where Park gets out of, what was it? I think Saka was on top or something, and from earlier on doing the body triangle on Park, tired her legs out pretty decently and just tired herself out in general. So that was kind of an interesting thing that we got to see um, Izawa overcome, and that she needs to continually work on, obviously, to stay on top, but managing to still get by. It looked like she almost went out for a second, but if you look at the fight score from a whole, like aggression and um, generalship or control, those were very clearly for Seka, who was looking for the submission attempts and just pushing the action. Obviously, that's 50 points easily for her, and then which negates, obviously the aggression, I would say, for Park, and then she didn't really have the control either, at least over Seka. Um, the damage is where you would be like, all right, did she do enough damage to score highly? Because when you get the points for damage, it's like significant, like not 10-8 for the unified rules, but like closer to that than, just, oh, they landed some good shots and outstruck them or out damaged them, right? They got to be decently significant. So in my opinion, it's very close, a very close rematch, great fight. But when you look at the scoring of how RIZIN fights are scored as a whole, not round by round and by that system, Sekizawa gets 50 points. No doubt about it. There's literally no debate that she had control and aggression, right? Those are in her favor. That's 50 points, 30 for aggression, 20 for control. Can't really give her damage, I don't think, which is 50. But if you give Park 50, then it's a draw. So I think at best, Park can only get a draw in this fight. But still did good, obviously. Not much of a setback. I'm sure we'll get a trilogy. I'm not against it. This is kind of, become already, you guys, this fight, this matchup, this pairing, the top two atom weights in the world now. It's very kind of crazy. You look at it, it is the new version, right? The updated version, if you will, of like Hamasaki and Ham's rivalry. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to see how it's played out. Like, obviously, it's both Japanese and South Korean, and have some ties, links to each other in some ways. But that's kind of weird how it's all played out that way, right? It's very, very interesting. But yeah. Very enjoyable fight, very, technical and interesting chess match, like I said. Not the most wild or crazy thing, but if you're like a real fight fan who kind of understands what's going on, I think you will have enjoyed this more than, let's say, someone who just likes to see, obviously, chaos. That's why I think it was a solid 8 for me. Maybe 7.5, 7, 8 range, but yeah, I was not disappointed, and it was very close. Like, I wouldn't have been mad if Park flat out won. Obviously, one judge thought that she did, but when you go by the scoring, I don't quite agree with that. I think draw at best for her, but either way, good stuff. Very good stuff. And Cintro is here on time. Great. You love to see it. Barton says, thank you for speaking out. I'm just baffled by the amount of support about domestic violence just saying to me. Yeah, that's never a good thing. That's never a good thing. Rio says, was it me or Park's striking looked sloppy? I think maybe sloppier than usual. And that could have just been her being taken aback a little bit by just that nonstop, kind of in your face style that Seka brings, and just the constant threat of takedown, right? Like she does not care where she ends up. We know this. She's fine and comfortable everywhere, and she has every right to be because she is very, very talented in all positions. So I think it was just kind of a lot to process when you're facing Sayakizawa. A lot is coming at you, so Park was maybe a little bit more, not as tight as usual. So I think that's fair to say, Rio. But I don't know if I wouldn't say like flat out sloppy, but maybe not as sharp, obviously, as we usually see her. James, a shout out to Chris Presnell, my fellow Pacific Northwestern Portland boy, said this was more dubious than the decision indicated. Not a robbery, but no clear winner. Do I agree with that? I think that's fair. Like I said, I think I felt pretty comfortable and do feel comfortable giving it to Sayaka, especially considering how the fights are scored. Like I broke it down there. I'm pretty comfortable with that, pretty fine with it. Definitely not a robbery because it was very close. And like I said, I would totally have been fine with the draw as well because of how the point system works. So I think that's pretty fair. Yeah, it was a competitive fight. It was good. But Cintro says, looks like I'm not alone, but I thought Park striking looked really bad, like chin up in the air, winging wide punches. All right, there you go. Makoto says, for the rating, I have to disagree, Drake. This is more of a 6 and maybe a 6.5 out of 10, just because I thought the grappling was more stagnant than usual. That is fair. That's fair, Makoto. Like, yeah, there weren't Seka kind of struggled to get the transitions and chain things together, maybe more than obviously usual. And the first round was the best example of that, right? Kind of getting stalled in the corner there. But either way, I think you got to have. I think this fight was better than a 5, no matter how you cut it, right? I was so intrigued and compelled by when you know just how talented like Seka is on the ground and in the grappling. Any little thing, that can be, it can lead to something out of nowhere real fast. So that kind of just captivated me the whole time. And you're always on edge a little bit. And not to say you guys don't know this either, but for me, and seeing how things would play out and like awaiting the next move, that has had me more excited than anything. So, you can have, that's fine. I think that's fair assessment as well. Alvin says, such a fantastic fight. Thank you both competitors for bringing the best. Absolutely. Was a big one for the number 1 spot. Rio says, I saw sloppy stepping punches by Park. I thought she was a kickboxer. Yeah, she's definitely known to be the better striker. And James says, well, if Chris and Drake say it's not a robbery, then it's not a robbery. No, 100%. 100% not a robbery. The only robbery on this card was probably Kim versus Archuleta. That one didn't make a whole lot of sense, and even then, it's not like the worst robbery of all time, or that we've seen in a while. There were a whole lot worse last year in 2022, but if you were to say what was the worst decision out of the night, it was probably that one. And I would probably even say that Satoshi losing to McKee is a worse decision than this one as well. Like, yeah, like I said, I think a draw would have been totally fine for Park Izawa too. Go says he thought Izawa's guard passing was not as crazy or as fun as we were expecting, for sure. And yes, he thought the strike in the Park was not good. Yeah, she was definitely seemed thrown off. Citra says, what was up with the promoter dress code? I don't know what you mean by that. Who do you mean for? Like for everybody or the fighters? I don't know what you mean by that. But yes, again, good stuff there. Overall, not mad at it. It's it really just helps. Like, I obviously Siwoo Park was dejected and upset by losing the fight. But like if you're gonna lose that way, that's like the best way you can lose because again, it gets people fine with seeing a trilogy sooner rather than later. Like I don't know how soon we'll see it, but there's no reason to think that Siwoo Park isn't gonna stay like in the top 5 100%. But who can knock her out of her number 2 spot? I don't really at the moment. I think they're both going to be the top 2 for a good while. So we shall see. Jumbo says, hello, not hell. I did not see this fight. Well, you missed out, Jumbo. Definitely check it out. A very, very interesting one. Definitely a very, very interesting one. And Sintra says, Scott and Sakakibara looked out of sorts and odd. I thought that Sakakibara looked very sharp. He had the bow tie on, right? He looked good. Like he was there for a party. I don't remember seeing or what Scott was wearing, but yeah. As Makoto says, how would you rate the performance by the winner? Because to me, it was more of a 5 and maybe 5 out of 5 out of 10. Rating the performance of the winner specific. Should we do that? Oh, we did this last week, didn't we? Yeah, we did do for Corey McKenna. Was that last week that we talked about Corey? I don't know. Either way, we did do that, didn't we? So yeah, for Sayaka's performance, performance aside from the fight, because yeah, I feel pretty good about 7.5. 7.5, I think, is probably where I would finalize my score on the fight itself. And then as for Sayaka, yeah, I think you're probably right about good there, Makoto. Yeah, sorry. You know, it's still new. I'm still trying to, yeah, you remember that, but okay. Right. 5 out of 5, 6. I think that's definitely fair. That's a pretty good range because she still did and managed to do a lot of what she wanted to do, just not as maybe effectively as we're used to seeing. Obviously not compared to this year and the finishes she got in her previous 2 fights and then even in the Hamasaki rematch at the beginning of 2022. So I think I agree with that. Yeah, I'll round it out to 6. I'll just round it out to 6. But because in his opinion, we expected more from Izawa. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Like, again, you guys know how great she is and how much I'm a fan of hers as well. But this matchup was always going to be a tough one. Like, I think that they are made kind of for each other. Like I said, Hamasaki and Sohee Ham. It's very interesting to draw those comparisons, but those fighters who are kind of made for each other and just tough for each other to fight. So I mean, always expect more out of Izawa, but I'm not surprised that it kind of went this way. Like I did think that she would probably be able to pull off a submission because we have seen Siwoo Park get caught by things. Obviously, the Sarioshima rematch was a big one for her the last time she was submitted, right? So she's obviously improved the submission defense and her just grappling defense in general. She's gotten so darn good in 2022. And he's trying to be fair and unbiased. Yeah, I mean, you got to be, always got to be. So Jimmy agrees with a 6. Yeah, I think that's pretty fine. Yeah, yeah. So we're all pretty on the same boat about this one. So perfect. And Barton here with a question to close us out on the fight. Didn't see this fight, but could Izawa give DeCourcy a run for her money? Absolutely, Barton. I mean, Sekizawa was the best atomweight in the world. As you said, not that knowledgeable about MMA yet. Well, we're here to help you, man. So I appreciate the questions and whatnot. But yeah, no, I mean, Izawa would be favored, I think, for sure against Jillian. And that's not a knock on Jillian. She's obviously proven herself as the champion now in Invicta and this stellar 2022 that she had. But I feel like no matter what, especially against like the Siwoo Parks and the Sakizawas, she's kind of stuck in a perpetual underdog role, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're a better because she's knocking these people off. But you would kind of have to favor, I think, Seka, especially stylistically. It would be very fun. I think that would be a great next fight to do. And they're both down for it. Seems like Jillian would be more inclined to want it to be in Invicta. And I've asked Seka about this before, even when Tony was the champ, but she's fine with either. So I think we might be more I don't know, because Jillian would go to RIZIN, but she's not kind of going out of her way to do that, So, um, it would be cooler. I think it would obviously be bigger to have it in RIZIN, but we'll see. I think it's pretty possible this year. I mean, that fight makes a whole lot of sense. Jillian, I don't have my rankings up right now, but she's like 5'4" in my books. So yeah, no, Sayaka would definitely be favored in that one though. Barton. So Rain says the rating thing is really good because we have an actual thing to rank fights, and we can look at a real number instead of just getting mad at each other. That's true. That is true. And I should get like some kind of pull up some kind of graphics or something extra fun for it here. Sit down and figure something out for that at some point. But I do the rankings have been fun so far. The ratings, I should say. Gives you a better visual feeling, I guess you could say. I don't know, but it's been good. It's been good so far as we will have it continue to do it for the new year. So that was RIZIN 40 though, you guys. Quite an event. A lot of talking points, like I said. Bellator gets to 5-0, which again, like I said, questionable. I scored for Kim, like I said. So I think that RIZIN, Kim and Satoshi should have got wins at least. I see an argument for the Kleber fight. I think I need to rewatch that one, but I felt like it wouldn't have been crazy to give him the Pitbull one. Either way, the fights were competitive, except for the Horiguchi and Ugi Kubo trilogy. That was very one-sided, which a little bit surprising, but Kyoji, man, he's just a beast. As Ghost kind of spoiled it last week, didn't he? He just knows these things. He knew how it was going to go. Teasing us with the Horiguchi Tactical Tuesday. Speaking of which, we will get to that. Maybe not next. We'll save it for after the news here, but we'll call it a workshop Wednesday since I had to delay from yesterday. So, and look at me rhyming unintentionally now. But yeah, Jimmy says, feel bad for Satoshi. He is great. Very good. I mean, that was an awesome fight too. That was a great main event. Yeah, a very close one too, but I think he edged it out. All right, there we go. James liked it. I know. I thought of that last night. I think it was. It's a good replacement. So, all right. Well, let's get to the news really quickly here, you guys. Just one bit, like I said, no fights announced or anything, but we did have the news of Sarah McMahon's free agency ending as the former one-time bantamweight title challenger in the UFC has signed with Bellator, obviously as a obviously as a featherweight. She'd be a massive flyweight. She'd have to obviously shed some muscle for that, but that's not the case. Sarah McMahon is going up to 145. Shameless plug. I spoke to her the day after the news was revealed, so you can check out the chat with Sarah all about the happenings and whatnot here at MMAmania.com. Always great getting a chat with Sarah. She's really fun to talk to and, has a whole lot of experience, been around combat sports for practically her whole life now, from wrestling to MMA, was in the UFC from the start with the bantamweight division and now moving on kind of surprisingly, and she ultimately said it came down to if she wanted to continue making the weight cut and if she would be fine at 145, because man, I asked her how much she walks around at, and she's always like in shape. Obviously, she's insanely fit and has been since she was, started wrestling. And she said she walks around like 148, 147. So she's gonna have to cut like nothing for featherweight and has had never any problems whatsoever with bantamweights. Consummate professional, complete opposite of what we were seeing from Aspen Ladd, which is kind of funny how that fight played out by not happening. But yeah, Sarah has never fought above 140 pounds. That was like her third fight against Tanya Evinger and on short notice. So this will be new territory for her. I think she might be like, compared to most, maybe a little bit out heighted. She might be a little bit shorter. I think she's about 5'6", if I'm remembering. Depending on some of the matchups, right? But instantly, man, I think stylistically she's a pretty interesting matchup for Cyborg, and one that I never even thought about. And it was kind of interesting too talking to her because she highlighted something that we've seen has been a problem for her, right? Is as the fights go on, she gets worse, right? She starts off insanely strong, like one of the best first round fighters, honestly, maybe ever. She dominates so well at the start of her fights, but then has faded specifically in her losses. Excuse me, in her losses a lot, especially as her career has gone on. And she seemed to kind of attribute that maybe to potentially the weight cuts and, hoping that that could be different by allowing herself not to cut anything essentially. And then, just working on fixing up that part of things. So that's a good sign. Obviously, she's not going to get main event or anything right out the gate, but for a potential Cyborg fight, that would obviously be huge. And again, stylistically with her wrestling, I mean, I think it's interesting. I'm excited to. I expect that will happen. I don't really see. Can't see anybody knocking her off. I mean, Blanco is obviously a tough one to get past if that happens, but other than that, I think she should probably be fine. So, how do you guys feel about this one? How do you feel about it? So, Sarah McMahon has had a great tweet about Whaley's performance on Carla. Great defensive wrestling combined with offensive grappling. I think that sums it up how good it was. Great defensive wrestling combined with offensive grappling. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Sarah knows her shit when it comes to wrestling. No doubt about that. No doubt about it. Okay. Centro says, "Is it wrong for me to hope that she beat Cyborg at one point?" No, I mean, you can root for somebody all you want. I mean, I've always been a big Sarah McMahon fan, so I would love to see it happen too. Like nothing against Cyborg, but just the journey kind of she's been on. It would be great to see her become a champion finally. I would love to see that. So, Ghost says, first off, a question: why don't the MMA media value good game planning where a fighter does something different and wins in a way they don't win normally? Second one ties into the first. I think they do, Ghost. I mean, unless you have some specific examples, but look at this is right what jumped to mind. I mean, maybe the best example you could use, but Henry Cejudo versus Marlon Moraes was just like, I know that was a mid-fight adjustment, right? And even look at the Wilson Hayes win from Henry. I mean, Henry's just a great example here after the Demetrius fight. And even the Benavidez one, like he changed everything after losing to Demetrius the first time. And in the Wilson Hayes fight, like I don't even think he shot for one takedown. He had kind of that bouncy karate looking stance, and people were saying like, "Oh, it's Mini Machida," and this ridiculous kind of sounds funny. It sounds really funny, right? But Henry got a whole bunch of praise for that, and especially again, like I said, the Moraes fight. For that fight, I mean, that was one of the most incredible championship adjustments I've ever seen. So I mean, yeah, he's like the best example, I think, and had got a lot of praise from what I remember seeing. But I think we see that. And again, even I think Whaley did get some for the Joanna rematch. And there's some other cases that I'm surely missing, but those are the ones that come to off the top of my head. So Rio says he called Henry the karate hottie during the Wilson Hayes fight. Fair, very fair. I was gonna say, why is it always blamed on the better fighter on paper not showing up than the game plan of the fighter who won? I don't think it's always blamed, but that definitely does happen a decent bit, I think. I don't know how much I would, if I was to do a percentage, what I would say that split is, but I think that is a fair, that's definitely something that does happen. Like, and the fighters are to blame too for a lot of that. Best example here of this too is Connor bringing up all these things, excuses if we're going to be honest, right? Like how his shin was already cracked and all this stuff. Had a broken foot against Habib, like that gives just the easiest fuel and ammo to everybody to say that he, didn't show up at 100% or whatever you want to call it. So that's just how that goes. I think I'm going to take the headphones out because I don't need them. I know the mic's working. So it's my ears getting itchy. Rio says, but Henry actually connects with his punches and kicks. This is true. Jimmy says, when Conor brings up those things, do media like to jump on board? I think at this point, we kind of see it. People kind of know we know what we're getting with Conor, but in the beginning, it was kind of a little bit of a thing where, because until it becomes a reoccurring theme, you got to give someone the benefit of the doubt, I think, for the most part. So yeah. I'm going to put these back in. Actually, it's too comfortable this way. All right. So that was the news, you guys. Feel free to keep the comments coming, though, of course. Before we get to the awards ceremony, we will get our Workshop Wednesday out of the way here, which I watched this one beforehand. I kind of like how, they're just cozy little appetizers, you could say, for whatever's coming up. And this one that Ghost is giving us was a good one. I enjoyed it. I think it's a good highlight, as they typically are, but this one specifically, I don't know. I enjoyed. So let's make the adjustments here. Give me a moment. All right, here we are. Sharing. Tactical Tuesday on a Wednesday. A workshop Wednesday. Full screen it with the Copyright Act disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. I'm going to read it just because I can. I got to test out my, what is it? My, what are those guys called? Going once, going twice. My voice for auction, my auctioneer voice gives me the opportunity to practice that. My speed, my reading speed. So, all right, here we go. Today we discuss the tactical idea of a tempo shift. A tempo shift is where a fighter purposefully slows down, causing the opposing fighter to slow down as well, then suddenly attacks, changes speed, to create an attack. Yuri breaks his stance and begins walking around to his left. Here in the epic Glover to share a fight. The fact that Yuri is standing upright and walking tells Glover that he is not walking, then not fighting. Yuri changes tempo by planting his foot into stance. Yuri plants his foot and drives off it to thrust in with a good left straight that catches Glover walking in. Define this tempo shift as a legit tactic or just typical Yuri madness. So, see, I love this Ghost because, oops, here we are. I think that it's pretty clearly both. I think tempo shifting is very much a legitimate tactic, but Yuri is also crazy, ridiculous. We know this. But like this is something when I was watching this the first time, it made me think of, Dominic has done a lot of tempo shifting throughout his career, and his style has been considered very awkward. But like this is something I've seen him do several times from all the repeats of watching his fights in his career and everything. So it is a legitimate tactic. I don't think a whole lot of people do it, but it is definitely something that maybe the just more weirder styled fighters will do. Like I'm trying to think, there's somebody else that came to mind when I also watched this the first time, but yeah, I think it's a combination. To answer the question, I think it's definitely both things. So yes, very legitimate, very legitimate. Central says Workshop Wednesday. There you go. Says, are we getting another question that goes to where he knows the answer to? Probably. I mean, he usually does, right? Jumbo says, these are always great. I learn something different each time I watch these, even though I'm just a casual fan. Well, that's what they're there for. And I mean, with the tempo shifting too, I think it's a common thing you see in a lot of sports, especially like the ball team sports. You think about jukes in football or basketball, even, trying to throw somebody off by shifting your just momentum really and the tempo of how you're moving. So it's definitely a very legitimate thing just in all sports where you have to be moving to reach your target, right? So yeah, changing speed. Rue says, yeah, shifting. Yuri being crazy as usual. Yuri Madness. Have to go with Yuri Madness. All right. Makoto says Yuri's crazy and ridiculous. Indeed. Yes, but Cruz's tempo shifts are organized and well thought out. This one seemed like he thought of it on the fly. Yeah, that is true. That is a good point. So I mean, maybe specifically that one was something that, even though Yuri has definitely done some tempo shifty kind of strikes like that before in his career, before that fight, but that one specifically, if you were meaning, I thought you meant just kind of overall. So we can say for overall, I think it's both. But for that moment, I guess just kind of him being crazy. Like I described Yuri as a guy with a sword and saying, what could go wrong? Oh, that. Yeah, that's I think that is very, very well said. I can picture it now. So good stuff. Good deal. But all right, you guys. With that in mind, with that out of the way, you know what time it is? If you can even hear my week-old drum roll, it's time for the 2022 awards ceremony. I should put the music on for this, shouldn't I? A different one. Let's put on this guy. The 2022 awards ceremony. Here, I won't loop it, but I feel like you need music for the start of the award show. I mean, my goodness, come on, the award portion anyway. So, was it James and Jimmy, or Rain? I apologize. Whoever it was that helped with kind of the categories, I did not use some of them, and I will explain why before we get into this. Some of the names were very fun. Some of them were... So, okay, here, I'll just say this. There are going to be no awards for bad things, right? This isn't the, the Golden Raspberry, the Razzies, what is that called? For shitty movies, that award show. Because we like to stay positive, so we're not doing any negativity here with the awards. Specifically handing out things for being bad. That's no fun. So I took out that one, which was, there was one for that. And some of them that you guys gave were like straight up copies from, I think I noticed Jack Slack and Dan Tom. So I don't want to straight up steal their stuff, you know? Like I understand what you're getting, at least maybe the names. I know I kept one of these in here that I was like, all right, that one's fine. But, so there are some also that I brought back from last year. I went back and looked at last year's show, which I think I just brought back one. So let's see how many awards we have to give out today here in a moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I'm going to breeze through a little bit of the first half here just because they are not the big ones, right? And I have my slides up here for the big winners, but feel free, of course, to get your comments in. So I'm going to section it off there. I will see what you guys got to say after. I would love to, of course, see what you guys' thoughts are and whatnot. But, but glad to see you guys are liking the background tunage for the award show opening. There we go. As Jimmy says, so no robbery of the year. Yeah, no, I didn't do robbery of the year. I think that's pretty on the line between negative and whatnot, because that's not a fighter's fault, right? So I don't know, and excluding it to women specifically, I don't know if there's any big standouts, right? And I want it, if there's going to be a robbery of the year, I want it to actually be a robbery. You can't just do like the a fight that was close that you can understand. Like, for example, I know a lot of people thought Demopoulos lost to Jin Yu Fry, right? That fight I thought was close enough to not be a robbery. So I'm probably, well, there was the Invicta one too. I'm forgetting who it was between, but and then of course I know you guys feel Dern versus Torres. I haven't got to go back and rewatch that, so I just kind of skipped over that. So Go says he doesn't like the traditional awards. Well, I mean, those are the big ones. We are going to get to those. Those are the main ones, of course. The usual suspects. You got to have those. But anyways, we're going to kick things off here with the award that kicked off last year's show. Last year, the winner of this award was Chris Cyborg. But this year, we went a little bit different route. This was a little bit of a hard one to narrow down. I think there were maybe two strong options that ended up there for the winner. But this year's most violent fighter goes to Mexico's own Yasmin Yaraguay, who made her UFC debut, got 2 wins this year in great fashion, very exciting fashion, violent fashion, most importantly, throwing down with Yasmin Lucindo in the debut. One of the best fights of the year as well. Nonstop, pedal to the metal, whole time. And then in her second fight, which happened just a couple months ago against Estela Nunes, gets dropped in the first round, rallies back, just pours it on relentlessly going into the second, beats down Estela with some just nasty ground and pound. Fight probably could have stopped earlier, but she was a shark smelling blood completely in both of those fights. Got the finish in the second one, but Yasmin Yaraguay was pretty darn nasty this year. So she is your 2022 most violent fighter of the year. Congratulations to her. Great year for her. Great talent. Going to be even a bigger, better 2023. I think the sky is the limit for Mexico's finest. One of Mexico's finest. So round of applause to Yasmin. I need a sound effect for clapping. I really dropped the ball here, you guys. So there you go. There you go. Congrats to Yaraguay. So yes. As interesting as this lady BMF most violent, you could say that too. If you're gonna do a fun name, there you go. That's her. So yes, James says sent some of stuff that Dan Tom likes. There you go. Indeed. But all right, so we will move along to the next award here, which is, yes, I stole this name a little bit from the suggestion. So we're starting off with kind of those ones, as you mentioned there, James. I know I do need a soundboard for sure. The sound effects could really make things sillier around here. But anyway, moving on to the most improved, also known as the tactical turnaround of 2022. This award, I think, it seemed pretty clear. It seemed like a pretty clear answer and winner, especially in terms of the type of turnaround, the magnitude of it, how they turn things around. Not that they were down or anything. And I know that the turnaround sounds like comeback a little bit too. We do have the comeback award, but most improved, it makes sense. I think it makes sense. And you might know where I'm going. But this year's most improved fighter, the tactical turnaround winner, if you will, the strawweight champion of the UFC, Zhang Weili, gets the award. 2 wins in 2022. First, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who she thoroughly dominated with her wrestling in the first round before putting her lights out with the spinning back fist in round 2. And then Carla Esparza, obviously, in the second fight, happened in November, defeats her at her own game, essentially. And why does Weili win this? Well, obviously, her grappling, I think we knew was already good, especially if you've watched her. But the kind of not weakness or worry was wrestling defense. How was she fair with that? You could argue that it lost her the Rose rematch, which I think is probably a safe argument, especially you look at the 5th round. Like, of course, she arguably won it as is, but the 5th round really kind of hosed her there, any chances that she possibly had. Like, if she won that one, then probably not even talking about that. But because if you remember, she got taken down and controlled for that whole round. But in 2022, that was not the case. Didn't happen one bit. So Weili was already, it wasn't like she was bad. I feel like the thing about this award and clarifying improved means somebody was like maybe not good or whatever, but that wasn't the case. But just the improvements she made, pretty significant ones, and tactically turning around maybe what you're grown accustomed to seeing from that person. So, and it led her to a title, so that certainly helps. So there you go, Zhang Weili with the maybe first of many awards this year. We will see. God, this is toilet noise for bad take. That's a funny one. I like that. That is funny. As Rio says, good choice. Now we don't need to get angry about fight. All right. Rain says he named this after Whitaker because of his epitome of this award. All right. That's what it was. Yeah. Robert Whitaker. Even though I'm not sure I agree with that. Like, I think Whitaker's kind of been a gradual progression. Excuse me. Yes. So there you go. And yeah, wait. See, that's the thing is like with some people, I just think it wasn't maybe as clear. So congrats to Weili for being the most improved and a great 2022. Like all these fighters had pretty good years, obviously, but we're still going to congratulate them. So props to her for that one, the tactical turnaround, the most improved of 2022. So, all right. Excuse me. Got a burp coming on, but it's not coming out. Stuck in there. The fun of live streaming. All right. Okay, so now we move on to the technical savant of the year, which this one was a little bit tricky too, but the more I thought about it and considered the performances, one maybe over the other, I think that this one might catch you guys a little bit off guard, but I think you might not also be able to argue with it when we make our explanations. And I'm very curious to hear what Ghost thinks, because hard to deny that Angela Hill did pretty well in her 2 fights in 2022. So she is the technical savant of 2022, specifically the highlight obviously being her Lupi Godinez victory, where she was able to change things up there a little bit on the fly and prevent Lupi from getting those takedowns with her knees. Timing it nicely and keeping her away, obviously, to end up securing the victory and getting off her shots as the fight went on. And then in the Emily Ducote the Emily Ducote fight that happened after that, a little bit recently, she did her thing on Emily Ducote as well, even though I would say maybe that was more of Ducote not showing up. And I know I shouldn't be saying that, especially right now, but Angela Hill still put it on her and performed in great fashion to shut her down entirely with just the volume and, piecing her up, jab and whatnot over the course of that fight. But really the standout is obviously the Lupi fight. And you could say that's enough just to do it. Like, I don't know how you want to quantify, but when I thought about this award, I like you look at the whole sample size, but that fight with Lupi really stands out. So there you go. There you go. And Ghost says he agrees. Also mentioned how she made Lemos tired in the clinch and trying to wrestle. There you go. See, yes, technical savant. Indeed, was a Dan Tom mention. But yeah, I know you can't. Got to give credit where it's due, though, you guys. I know you're not big fans of Angie, but she it's impressive, even considering just how long she's been around, and that she's like 38 now. You got to remember, Angela Hill is one of the older fighters fighting among the women right now in the UFC anyway. So for her to kind of continue showing these things, very impressive, and a well-earned technical savant award. And like Ghost mentioned with the Lemos fight, a lot of people think she won that one too. That was a pretty close one. So with an award like this, you can win it without being perfect in the year. So, and he says she looked good even against Lemos. Yeah, I mean, like I said, arguably won. I thought Lemos rightfully got the win there, but it was very close. That was a very close fight. So there you go. Congrats to Angela Hill. We'll see what 2023 brings to her. Seems like the activity has slowed a little bit, but she's still there. You go. As he mentions also laying out the blueprint to beating Lemos. That's it definitely is something that people can learn from for sure. But all right, there we go, you guys. As we creep up to the big boys here. Now we look at the best game plan of the year of 2022. Your best game plan of the year. Again, a little tricky. You could say, or you could say a nominee for it. A consideration would be Hill versus Godinez, even though I'm not sure I feel that one was the idea going in. I didn't hear anything she said about it specifically, but a great adjustment. But the best overall game plan of the year. Now, there were some good ones out there, especially earlier on when you look back at things. But this one felt pretty clear too. This felt pretty easy. She already won an award. We had just talked about it. But Zhang Weili, once again, gets her second award of 2022. The best game plan when she took on Joanna Jędrzejczyk at UFC 275. I mean, it really helps considering this was a rematch. Like, even without it, I think it's probably the best game plan. But I don't really know how you don't go with this one. Because let's just first of all look at the fact that it was a rematch. First fight, there was 5% of grappling, maybe. Weili went for a takedown at like the end of the second round, got it for like 10 seconds. That was like the only grappling exchange we had in the first fight. Joanna, historically one of the best strikers of all time, obviously put up an insane fight with Weili in the first fight. And then the rematch, he's like, nah, we're not going to do that again because sure, it was fun and all, but I want to decisively win. Goes out there, dominates her in the wrestling. No problem whatsoever. And then still is able to hang on the feet and, keep her guessing, though. Kept Joanna guessing with the heavy wrestling, dominant in the first round. Didn't really go to in the second, but ended up finishing her anyways. Just the fact that she went the wrestling route rather than giving us what we wanted, right? We wanted a repeat of an amazing fight, but it was still a beautifully impressive performance anyways, obviously. So smart, very good game plan. I mean, obviously, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So best game plan. That was a pretty easy category, I think. So there you go. As Jimmy agrees, says that did something completely different. I'm surprised at myself for not even thinking about that. Oh yeah, what was your pick then, Jimmy? What were you leaning towards as your best game plan? As Cintro likes that one as well. I'm assuming he agrees, but yeah, it just seemed a bit like a no-brainer. Again, there were some good ones to choose from, but I think the fact you look at the rematch element of this really helped it. Helped Weili secure that award. So congrats to her again in a matter of minutes for her second award of 2022. It was a good one for her. As Jimmy liked, Torres versus Dern for best game plan. All right. Okay. A good shout. I really, really do need to rewatch that one, but hard to deny. Yeah. I mean, there were some of the Dern fights I think were considerable, but again, I think, like I said, the rematch element really helped this one. But either way, trying to wrestle Joanna or going in to wrestle her is always a good idea. So best game plan. Congrats, Weili. Well done. Well done. So, all right, now we move on to this was a tough one. This was a very tough one, you guys. My goodness. The breakthrough fighter of 2022. There are always so many directions that you can go with this one. And my goodness, it was a tough decision to make here, but when you look at the fact that this person, again, when you're counted out and you manage to exceed the expectations by such a degree with such phenomenal performances, launch yourself practically from being not ranked to one of the best in the world. Kind of hard to say you didn't break through. So this fighter, also a nominee for Fighter of the Year, but spoiler alert, they didn't win it because instead they got Breakthrough Fighter of the Year. Congrats to our two-time guest host, the Invicta FC Atomweight champion, Jillian DeCourcy, on a phenomenal 2022. I mean, I don't know how what she did isn't a definition of breaking through. Yes, we knew about her. She's not a prospect. A lot of the times people will reserve this category for, let's say, a prospect or somebody who's climbing up. But I mean, she climbed to the top, the top of the division, won a title with one of the best knockouts of the year. So spoiler alert, nominee there. Will it win? We'll see. Defeating Lindsey Van Zant, which is an insane, minute knockout. And then submitting Jessica Del Boni, who looked like she wasn't going to be beaten Invicta anytime soon. Submits her in the first round. I mean, that's how you break through. And I think it might be even more fitting because Jillian's been around for a while. She's been trying to break through, but then she does it in this fashion with these performances and who they were against. Give it up. Give it up. Jillian DeCourcy, Lionheart, Jilly Bean, all the nicknames she could possibly have. Now she is 2022 Breakthrough Fighter. So congrats to her. I think that is certainly fair. It was a good one. So Rio likes it. He's good. Jimmy agrees. And James, real quick, going back to the other one, says, isn't it normally a bad idea to wrestle with Joanna due to her stellar takedown defense, making this award even more substantial? That is a good point. Yeah. Joanna historically has some of the most insane takedown defense ever. So that is a great point. And Rain says, Jillian DeCourcy of having a nice horsey. Congrats. There you go. Congrats to Jilly Bean, of course, if she's tuning in. Of course, she's a friend of the show, and we'll have to get her back on in 2023, of course. So always fun times with the champ of Invicta and the Breakthrough Fighter of 2022. Round of applause to her. Well earned. My goodness. So, all right, you guys, now we get to the biggins, the big boys, the big guns, if you will. The awards that got you out of your seats. The final, what is it? 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The final 6, the big 6, if you will. Jumbo is here. Says congrats to all the winners so far. Indeed, Karen, how are you doing? Welcome to the award portion of the show, the ceremony, if you will. Comeback of the year. This one was fairly easy, I think, because there weren't too many comebacks this year. I think last year was pretty darn easy. Juliana Pena obviously won upset and comeback of 2021 for the Nunes win. Kind of hard not to. In this case, a lot of people like to do, or I notice this anyway, that people will do comeback of the year, and then they'll have the nominees for career or the fight itself. That's kind of annoying. I think that should probably be separated, honestly, in my opinion, because I think career comeback probably should win over a fight. Usually, like that's a bigger deal. You know what I mean? But I don't know. That's just how I kind of personally feel about that. But for this one, it's kind of a trifecta. So your comeback of 2022 is none other than Angela Lee's second round rear naked choke, 4 minutes and 50 seconds against Stamp Fairtex at 1X. Congratulations to Angela, the atomweight champion of one championship. And so, like I said, this was a bit of a trifecta, right? You look at this as Angela literally came back in the fight, as she was in some very serious trouble in the first round. Body shots from Stamp had her hurt real bad. Rallies in the second to pull off submission, rear naked choke, no less. But at the same time, this was her first fight back in like over a year and a half because of the pregnancy. So she was literally coming back from that. I wouldn't say it's a career comeback necessarily, but she had been out for a while, right? So it's got both. It's got both of the elements in a way. So extra fitting. But in terms of, especially amongst the women this year, this one with the stakes on the line, the title, Stamp had just won the tournament, so there was that element, practically the interim champion, right? This was a good one. This was a big win for Angela Lee, coming back not only in the fight, but after a layoff. So I think it's hard to go against that one, and that is why it is your winner for the comeback of 2022. Congrats to Angela Lee on another memorable moment, right? So Makoto says he doesn't remember a lot of comebacks, right? There weren't that many. There weren't that many in 2022. So it was kind of easier. As Rio says, glass body, Angela Lee. It's been a problem for her. It has been a problem for her indeed. So there you have it. The comeback of 2022. Solid one indeed. If you missed that, go check it out. Michael Chiavello was losing his mind. I know you guys love the old Chiavello. As we get ready to move on here. All right, but before we do, Ghost is going to give us another question here real quick. Says, why do we as a show fall into the mainstream trap that fighters are who they are and can't reinvent themselves over one fight, only have a phenomenal strategy to defeat a tricky opponent? Why do we as a show, so you talk about us specifically here, fall into the mainstream trap that fighters are who they are and can't reinvent themselves or for one fight? I don't know if we do that, Ghost. I mean, the thing is, people just get so used to, people as in the fighters, it's so used to and comfortable doing what they do best, and to completely change is very rare. Like Henry, again, you got to mention Henry because he is one of the best cases we've seen in a very long time. And obviously Whaley is doing that a little bit now too, but Henry's was like complete change up, just added this entirely new wrinkle of striking to his game, for everybody, and also adjusting to opponents. But people get so comfortable that switching your entire game is way easier said than done. And for example, I'm going to go to Dominic again here, because if you watched his chat on the MMA Hour after losing to Chito Vera, breaks my heart. I don't even want to think about it. But Ariel asked him, like, so do you change the style at this point? Like, because Dominic clearly understands like what his issue is with, the leaning and ducking into potential head kicks, which is what lost him that fight. And he kind of like flat out admitted like it's too late for that. So, I mean, obviously Dominic's older, so maybe not a good example, but I think a lot of people will feel that way no matter where they are in their career, more often than not. Obviously, it's not everybody, as we mentioned with Henry and Whaley, for example, again, but it's a difficult thing to reinvent that drastically sometimes. But he's talking about like a matchup. He's only a grappler, only a striker. Yeah, that's true. I mean, look, dude, here's another one. Look at Ilya Tapuria. Everybody forgot that. I did too. I completely forgot that he's a goddamn good grappler as well. He's a very good grappler. But that guy has added just this entire fucking danger zone of striking on the feet that he's total package. But he never used to be that way. And his striking got so good that people forgot that he can even do that. Like, I thought that Bryce would out grapple him easily. So, yeah. And Rio says, I mean, the only person to beat Dom correctly was Henry. Vera just threw away a left high kick and landed it, not like Henry, who had a great plan coming in. Exactly, Rio. Yeah, Cheeto was not winning that fight until he did. So that's why it hurts so much more, man. That is one of the most depressing moments of my fandom, for sure. James says, do I like Tapiri as much as he does? I think he's great to watch. Yeah, no, he is super fun. I really like him. I think he's gonna be around for a while. He is a talent. But all right, you guys, we spoke a comeback with the excuse me. I mentioned upset with the comeback when talking about Pena last year, but those are not together this time. In 2022, we have a different one. And again, there weren't that many crazy upsets, like DeCourse, Del Boni. That was a big one. But then outside of that, I don't know, it's tricky. There just weren't a lot. There weren't a lot to choose from here. Odds wise, though, there was a very clear one. According to the odds, and I honestly might think that DeCourse Del Boni probably is the one I would go with in my heart. But you add in that element of the betting line. Too, I think it's something to look at. The physical numbers help. I mean, this was also an upset regardless, but the upset of 2022, like most would agree, would be Larissa Pacheco's unanimous decision in their trilogy fight against Kayla Harrison at the 2022 PFL Championship. I thought this fight was going to be much more competitive and that Pacheco had a chance going in, right? So this was like not a crazy upset for me personally. Still an upset. Still thought Kayla would win it, but knew it was going to be tough. Knew it was going to be close like it was. But the odds makers had her still a huge underdog. I think still over 1,000 and whatnot. And for her to go in and perform as well as she ended up doing, didn't finish her, but pretty clear win. A pretty clear victory. 3 rounds to 2. I could argue even 4 rounds to 1, honestly. A big win there. So those were kind of the two you could go between, I think, pretty clearly. DeCourse versus Del Boni or Pacheco versus Harrison. But the odds, obviously, much larger difference for Pacheco to get the win there. So a literal massive upset, but on paper, I guess you could say, I don't know. Didn't seem like as much of one, but there just weren't a lot of options this year, right? So congrats to Larissa Pacheco, though. A big victory, finally slaying the beast, if you will, the kryptonite, post UFC, winning the title, all these things. Good win for her. Great way to enter the new year. As Cintro says, Xiaonan versus Dern. All right, yeah, that was definitely an upset. And as much as I love Xiaonan, I did not expect her to win that one. But again, I don't think magnitude. These are both title fights too that were the top two. It came down to, as I mentioned, DeCourse is a win, and then Pacheco's title fights, and then odds wise bigger as well. As Makoto says, did I think that DeCourse had a chance against Del Boni here? We thought because of 2 breakdowns we got and our bias. I mean, you know me, everybody has a chance. I didn't think she had a great one though, because Del Boni has looked so damn good. So yeah, I think that she had less of a chance than Pacheco did. I honestly do. But again, I'm factoring in the actual numbers in this one. So I think you combine those two things, like she was still an underdog, rightfully so, still an upset, but yeah. And James says, Larissa, yeah, no one expected that, especially dominated by someone who hasn't lost. Right, exactly. So there you go. Calvin, I'm running a show here, my man. Sorry, I can't get to you bringing up random things. We're in the middle of the awards. So respect your opinion and who you like to watch, but trying to stay on track here, man. So rule of the show is stay positive and please do not derail. Otherwise, you can get on getting. Because, yeah. Rio says, who wins the trilogy? Trilogy between who? This was the trilogy. Harrison and Pacheco was the trilogy. But okay, what are we getting to now? All right, you guys. Here we go. Here we go. We get to the big four now. I know I called it the big six, but we're progressing down to the big awards. And Rio asking fourthology. I think it's tetralogy is what they're called between Harrison. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not sure yet. I think it's too early to say. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, submission of the year, you guys. And so, as this is the big four, we have nominees here for you. All right. We're going to lay them out. It was a great year of submissions. A lot to choose from for a lot of different reasons. So, the nominees for submission of the year are Zhang Weili's rear naked choke over Carla Esparza at UFC 281. Jessica Andrade's standing arm triangle of Amanda Lemos at UFC Vegas. What was it? 56. I don't have it in my notes, but there's that one. Erin Blanchfield's Kimura against, or was it an Americana? I don't have that in the notes either. I just have the nominees. My apologies. Erin Blanchfield's Americana versus Molly McCann at it was an American. It was a Kimura. My bad. Jeez, I'm all over the place. Blanchfield versus McCann. Nominee. Seki Zawa's guillotine versus Laura Fontoura. Liz Carmouche's triangle armbar against Juliana Velasquez in their rematch. Vanessa Demopoulos' armbar against Silvana Juarez Gomez. And Corey McKenna's Von Flue choke against Miranda Granger. All fantastic choices. All have reason to be the submission of the year. But you guys know, if you know me, the thing about the submission and the knockout award categories and what makes a submission, a knockout, a finish, what makes it great, what makes it the most special. A lot of things. But when no one else is able to do that thing, when it is something you never see and might not ever see again, if it can get close to that, that's good. That's what is most impressive and crazy to me. So, for example, that is why I think Yair Rodriguez's knockout of Korean Zombie is the best knockout of all time, hands down. And yes, Joaquin Buckley's is pretty good and up there, right? Those are two very insane, unique knockouts. So you want to be as close to impossible as you can be, right? So, for example, we got a first. We got a first this year among those. And so you can probably pinpoint which one. But this year's submission, 2022, belongs to Jessica Andrade for her first round standing arm triangle against Amanda Lemos. My goodness. When did you ever expect to see a standing arm triangle? Since what? The last time we saw it, I want to say, at least in like a pretty notable fight, was Jessica Ai and Zoila Frausto. The fight that put Jessica Ai on the map, for better or worse. But the fact that Jessica Andrade, funny how they're both Jessicas doing that, goes out there, does it in the first round against a top contender who is unbeaten at strawweight. Jessica Andrade, two of all people, the bruising brawler, if you will, the tank, the pile driver as her literal nickname, goes out there and latches on a standing submission. Who would have? No, you can't predict that. You do not possibly predict that. I don't know what the odds were for Andrade by submission, especially in the first round, but I guarantee they were insane. So this is just something you don't see. You're not going to see for a very, 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 very long time. Who it was against, who did it, what round, main event, top contenders, all these things, they add up to this being the submission of the year. But what puts it over again is the rarity. That's the big factor when we look at these awards, the rarity of it all. You just do not see standing arm triangles. You really do not. And all the submissions, like I mentioned, were very good for very unique reasons. But man, a standing submission, I mean, that's just something. That is just something. So, all right. Congrats to Jessica Andrade. Big win there. Keeps her alive in any strawweight contender conversation. So we'll see how that plays out in the coming year as she goes back to flyweight first this month. In what, 2 weeks? 2 weeks she will be back. And shameless plug, we have an interview with Jessica Andrade here on the site, MMAnia.com. Jessica Andrade, check it out. So, all right. Now, you guys, it is time for the knockout of the year. Everybody's favorite category, maybe. I don't know. It's always a tough one to choose from. There's always so many good knockouts in a year, especially this year overall in MMA, not just women. Overall, it was an insane one. But this one was no different. I mean, with the women specifically, I guess is what I'm getting at. So, your nominees for the knockout of the year: Irene Aldana's up kick to the body on Macy Chasson at UFC 279. Natalia Silva, her spinning back kick to the face/throat against Teresa Bleda. Jillian DeCourcy's 60-second knockout of Lindsey Van Zandt. Molly McCann's spinning back elbow against Luana Carolina. Zhang Weili's spinning back fist in her rematch with Joanna. Meng Bo's 26-second knockout via punches and elbows against Jenilyn Olsum just a couple weeks ago. And Polyana Viana's Tekken combination knockout of Jinyu Fry. These were all insane. These were all beautiful. And this might have been the toughest one for me. This category might have been the toughest one to decide. I was going back and forth a lot. And man, it was tough. But then again, I thought to myself what I said for the last one. Which one of these is something we have never seen or seen the least of, yada, yada. And multiple of these are kind of that. There are multiple of these, at least maybe 3 of them are that level of unique, rare, unicorn level knockouts. But one is literally something I've never seen before, ever. And I don't know if we will ever see it again. We might. But when I thought about just how special and how fucking mind blown I was when I saw this, and like how confused I was very confused when it happened. So I'm giving it away here, but your knockout of 2022 belongs to Mexico's real finest, Irene Aldana, with a 3rd round up kick to the liver against Macy Chasson. I mean, what the hell is that, man? How does that even happen? And in a fight, too, where it came down to that 3rd round. Irene started off fantastically. Macy rallies. And then, all right, Who can make it happen? You're very competitive third round up until that point. Really hard to score. But in a moment where Macy's on top and Aldana pushes her off, throw some up kicks there, aiming for the face. I mean, she said she was aiming for the body. She practices it. So I'll just believe her. I don't think Aldana's a liar. She's a great lady. Big fan of hers. Comes down with the heel right to the liver. Puts Chasson on the ground. Insane. I've never seen anything like that. And I don't know if you will again. Like, that is the unicorn of unicorns. I mean, my goodness. Big congratulations to Irene Aldana for coming back in the year, too. This was her first and only fight of 2022. And then to get, reestablish herself in the rankings in the division and land such a crazy finish like that. My goodness. Again, very tough to choose from, but yeah, madness. So Jimmy says, do I factor how long the person was knocked out? No. I think that's kind of a weird thing that doesn't really matter, because once the fight's over, it's over. So everything that happens after doesn't really matter. But if you were to do it that way, then I think Molly probably wins pretty easily. And that was the front runner, right? I mean, spinning back elbow, knockout of that lethality, if that's even a word. That, geez, I've never seen anything quite like that either. But we've seen spinning elbows before, and she did it kind of twice in the year, so that kind of hurt her here. But the rarity of an up kick to the liver, ridiculous. And yeah, Cintra says fair, but not the most technical. Right? No, it's definitely not the most technical, but Jesus, insanity. Can't even speak about it. As Ghost says, I don't believe she practiced that because there's no way to practice it without hurting your partner. But what do I do? If you did it in like slow motion, Ghost, if you if you were to really just think about it that way and shadow up kick, if you will, in that way. But yeah, you can't do that at full speed because you just be fucking shutting down your training partners all day, which maybe she does. The Lobo Gym can get a little feisty. So yeah. Congrats to Irina Aldana again. Sensational. I love watching her fight. Hopefully she can be more active in 2023. But that was good stuff. That was a great fight and just the last thing you ever expect. You don't expect that kind of finish ever. And that's what we like in our awards. And he says, but if you shadow that move, you give up the guard pass. Very true. It's incredibly situational too, Ghost, right? Like, it's just that rare. That's the thing about it. That's what makes it so great. And worthy. So again, congratulations. But all right, moving on, you guys, the last two awards here as we are going to drip over time just a bit, but that's all right. It's for the love of the sport, the love of the fighters who had their great years. As we move on to the double, if you will, the fight of the year. The fight of the year of 2022. Again, some pretty good ones here. But I think it was a pretty clear choice. I think it was a pretty clear choice in the end. So your nominees for Fight of 2022. You guys are going to really, I know you're not going to agree with some of the nominees, but that's okay. I think you'll be fine with the winner. Your nominees for the Fight of 2022. Caitlin Chukagian versus Amanda Ribas. Seki Izawa versus Ayaka Hamasaki 2. Zhang Jingnan versus Angela Lee 3. Sari Oshima versus Miyu Yamamoto. Yasmin Yaraguay versus Yasmin Lucindo. And Mackenzie Dern versus Yan Xiaonan. But only one can be the winner. And for me, I don't know how the winner is not the champs, the Champ Trilogy, the Panda versus Unstoppable, Zhang Jingnan versus Angeli 3 at 1 on Prime Video. 1 is your fight of 2022. I mean, I don't have to say anything. I don't have to say anything more about this. Every single encounter between these two is guaranteed to be great. Was this one? This one wasn't even the best fight of their 3 fights, but it was still good enough to be the fight of the year. That tells you exactly how good these two are. Of course, let's put a disclaimer here. Fights are always at an advantage when they have 2 extra rounds, right? That certainly helps with the drama, the fight itself, the action, everything. But again, the quality of these 2 champions and what they tried to do against each other, the way they threw down, it's just it's hard to match it. They are so made for each other. It's not even funny. Congrats to both of them for the win. Another fantastic fight. Congrats to Panda, literally, for winning the fight and going 2-1 in the series. I could seriously watch them fight every week, and it would be good. That's just the type of matchup that it is with these 2 champions. And that element too of champ versus champ is just exciting thinking about that. But ultimately 5 rounds of chaos, the first decision that they have gone to after 2 fifth round finishes beforehand. One of the greatest trilogies of all time. 3 of the greatest fights from women of all time. I mean, if you have not seen this fight or any of their fights, do yourself a favor and definitely go check out the entire trilogy because you will not be sorry. So, yeah, this was chaos. Spartan says, have we asked too many questions? I'm managing as best I can. We're about to get to the last award, so you're all good, man. You are all good. As we're seeing some love for the Yasmin battle. Yeah, it was a great one too. It really was, but just something about this trilogy, man. So, all right, congrats to them again as we get ready to wrap up our awards ceremony. Good stuff from the champs. We'll see if they collide for a 4th time in 2023. No developments on that as of yet, but I wouldn't be mad at it from a fight perspective, but from a divisional perspective, yeah, probably not the best move there. So yeah. And Jumbo says Zhang is not as famous as Zhang, so sorry, not a fan of Zhang. Well, that's no reason not to be a fan of her, Jumbo, but you are entitled to however you feel. Okay, let's close out the show now with obviously your fighter of 2022. I mean, what else? What other way are you going to do? That's the big one. The person who had the most success, the biggest year, who did the best, performed the best, all these things, all these elements to it, came down to the wire, as you guys know. And in this category, there's not as many nominees because it's always pretty easy to decipher, and it's usually a crop of champions, and that is no different here. So your nominees for Fighter of 2022 are Larissa Pacheco, PFL Lightweight Champion, Zhang Weili, UFC Strawweight Champion, Saka Izawa, the RIZIN Super Atomweight Champion, and Jillian DeCourcy, the Invicta FC Atomweight Champion. And your winner of this year's Fighter of 2022, spoiled this in the weeks leading up to it, but the winner is indeed the RIZIN Super Atomweight Champion, Seki Izawa, who went 4-0 in 2022. 2 finishes, 2 wins over the number 2 ranked fighter in the division behind herself because she is the number 1 atomweight in the world, one of the best fighters in the world, undefeated, 9-0 overall. Seki Izawa close out the year big, obviously, with the Siwoo Park rematch victory that we talked about in the beginning of the show. Kicked off the campaign with a win, a clear win over one of the greatest fighters of all time, the best atomweight of all time. Her second win over Ayaka Hamasaki before entering the RIZIN tournament as the champion, defending her belt the whole way through, not literally, but obviously lineally. Shows just an insane amount of resolve and technique in her submission over Laura Fontoura after being caught and trapped in a triangle for almost the entire round before switching up and getting a guillotine from on top in guard, mind you. Insane. And then armbar submission over Anastasia Svedkivska before the Siwoo Park win again. So 4 wins. No one had more amongst the champions. The quality of opposition, all the combination of these things for your winner, your best fighter of 2022. Congratulations to Starflower. What an absolute insane start to a career that it's just been for her. My goodness. She was my personal fighter of last year too, because of the things she did. Obviously, when we were still WMA Today, she did not win last year. That went to Valentina. She was the winner, but Sekizawa was obviously has had just a phenomenal start to her entire MMA career, which is only this was only her second year in the sport overall. So she has just done incredible things. Big congratulations to her. So, all right, you guys, that wraps up the awards of 2022. We have went overtime, as I wasn't sure if we would do, but we did get it all done. Let's play the music again. We'll go back to the regular music since we're at the end of the show. We do that anyways. But let me see that it's actually going. Yeah, we're good. We're good there. Thank you so much, you guys, for tuning in and joining me and us and everybody for the first episode of WMMAnia in 2023. Onward and upward. Another great year. Hopefully coming, right? Fingers crossed. It was a great 2022. Had a whole lot of fun. A whole lot of interesting talking points. My goodness, it was just madness from top to bottom. But we keep on chugging along for what has already started out to be a crazy first couple of days at MMA for unrelated fighting reasons. Isn't that wonderful? But yeah, so don't forget, you guys, visit MMAnia.com for all your MMA needs. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe with the video. The like button at least really helps out a whole bunch. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. You follow me at DrakeBrooks_ on Twitter and Instagram if you would so like. I don't know why you would, but I'd appreciate that. And as for shameless plugs, I mentioned the Sarah McMahon interview that is out now. And also, I teased this one last week, and it was quite a doozy. But I managed to get a hold of the Deep Jewels flyweight champion, Rin Nakai. So we chatted this past week, and it dropped on Monday. That is now out, available. She wants back in the UFC real bad. She wants to fight in North America. She'll take Bellator or PFL. She just wants to not fight in Japan anymore. So interesting stuff there from Rin Nakai. Check that one out if you are so fancy. But yeah. All right. As Ghost says, we didn't get in trouble, so it's a good year. That is yeah, always a good thing. All right, you guys. Anyways, happy New Year once again. Happy 2023. Enjoy one more week off of MMA before we get back in that roller coaster swing of the UFC calendar. But until then, take care, you guys. I will see you next week. Back to Tuesday, hopefully. Again, it's just crazy times. I apologize for my shiftiness, but the plan is always for Tuesdays, 12 p.m. Pacific time. All right, you guys. Stay safe and stay sane. Take care. I appreciate you.